told you my philosophy is to build the largest portfolio possible. I need to buy as many houses as possible. So the cash that I have on hand, the cash my private investors have on hand, has to be treated very carefully and make sure that I'm stealing that house from them if I'm going to be using my cash. So typically what we do is when we do a cash deal, it's a great deal, okay? The house is worth $100 and I got it for 40 grand, and that's typically the kind of cash deals that we might accept. Right? So when you find a great deal like that, it's pretty easy to find a private lender. People come up to me all the time and they go, well, how do you find private lenders? Well, it's probably because your deals aren't that good. If your deals are really good, the investors will be there. We'll share with you tonight some tips about how to find private investors. We have a couple ideas on that we'll share with you. Another thing that we love about it is that we're dealing with people. I mean, banks, I never had anything against banks until the last 4 or 5 years, but just watching, what they do to people and watching the rings that they make people like me run through. They want your 2 years tax returns, your bank statements, and your blood samples, and a million other things, and only to be told no in a form letter, and they don't even have a reason for it. It's very frustrating when you're dealing with a private investor, especially today, these people are looking for ways to invest their money. There's a lot of people who aren't comfortable with the stock market right now, and I don't blame them with the collapse of Europe teetering on the edge of a cliff right now. And CDs are paying, what, 1%, 1.5%? So here's a guy like me. I can put together a tremendous real estate deal. I can borrow maybe 50% on the house or 60% on the house, which is a tremendous loan-to-value ratio. I can give the house as collateral to that individual, and I can pay them maybe 7% interest on their money. So people love it. Their money's safe. They're dealing with somebody who they hopefully know, like, and trust, and somebody that they maybe have known prior to me even approaching them with this deal. And that's something that we do a lot of as well. And I just love when every once in a while someone will say to me, well, real estate's sort of a alternative investment. We like to invest in stocks. I said, how the hell did real estate become alternative? It was around for about 5,000 years, where the stock market was for probably, I don't know, 1,000. So I don't know how it became alternative, but this is, one of the ways that we love to buy property. So I want to share that with you tonight. So my man Jeremy is going to come up here and talk a little bit about subject twos. And if, for those of you who don't know Jeremy, his nickname is Jeremy. We don't need no stinking banks, Ricci. And he's about the most intelligent guy I've ever met in this real estate investing world. And another interesting tidbit about him is that until he met me and I made him do it, he never bought a house that was for sale. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, this MLS thing, I don't know. Phil, I might ask for that mic. This one seems a little hot. A lot of you. Nice. So I wanted to talk a little bit about buying houses subject to. A lot of people have heard. How many people have heard the term subject to? Know what that means? Subject to can mean a lot of things. If you've ever bought a rental property, has anybody bought a rental property we just did last week that had a tenant already in it? You bought it, you had the tenant already in it? Okay, you bought subject to. You bought a property subject to a lease in that case. So subject to doesn't have to mean a mortgage. In most cases, that's what we're referring to as investors. We're buying houses subject to a mortgage. It could also be subject to a lien. We bought houses where there was, one of the examples I give, which I think is a funny one, is I had a judgment, and it was a lien filed against this house, and the individual had bought a baseball on eBay, and it was a forged baseball. So the recipient of this baseball was an attorney and sued the guy on eBay who sold him the baseball. Well, here I am buying the seller, the forged baseball seller's house, and there's this lien against the house, and it's a judgment from an attorney in California. So the attorney in California I bought the house subject to this lien. The attorney knew that there was a closing. He got all excited because his $7,000 judgment was about to get paid off for this fraudulent baseball. Well, he calls up the seller and he says, "What happened? I thought this house was going to sell." And he said, "Yeah, I did sell the house." "Well, how come I didn't get paid?" "Oh, well, they just excluded that off the title policy." So what I'm doing buying subject to, I'm really taking a risk and buying with dirty title. And when I buy with dirty title, I'm willing to take certain risks. Like in this case, it was a $7,000 judgment. I knew if I had to, I could pay off the $7,000. But I think it was a good opportunity for me to not pay it off, but to try to negotiate it after the settlement. So after I own this home, there's a $7,000 judgment on there. Now what? This guy in California, if he wants to collect his money, he has to enforce it. He has to foreclose. He has to pay an attorney, $2,000 to enforce this $7,000 thing. So at that point, it gave me a lot of leverage to go back and negotiate. So I think for $1,000, we got the guy to release the lien. So instead of actually satisfying it, paying off the $7,000, I said, "Would you take $1,000 to release the lien off of the house? And at which point you can go collect." Look, I didn't give you a forged baseball. Surely the house doesn't owe you a forged baseball. The guy didn't get any money from the deal. So there wasn't any money there. So I'll give you $1,000. You'll wipe off the lien off the house, but you can still go chase the guy that forged the baseball. Does that make sense? So we basically, buying it subject to that lien gave us an opportunity to negotiate that lien later. But realize there was a risk. The risk was that if he didn't accept the discount, then I would have to pay $7,000 plus possible attorney's fees and other stuff. But a lot of times that's a risk I'm willing to take. Another example that was great is we bought a house in Bucks County in Telford, and this had a large sewer lien, water and sewer lien. The house was left vacant. In the Northeast, when a house is left vacant and it's wintertime, what happens? The pipes burst, right? So the pipes burst, and we go over to look at the house, and we buy the house, and it's got this $18,000 water sewer lien on it. So $18,000. 2/3 of your water sewer bill is typically sewer, and 1/3 of it's water. So in this case, 2/3 of the bill was a lien. 2/3 of that $18,000 was a lien for the sewer. Well, we looked at the house, and in the shed of the house is the meter, because the shed was attached to the house. And here's this meter. The pipe burst right after the meter. It's outside. It's in the shed. There's no heat there. So you have this break in the pipe, and we call up the water and sewer company and said, "Look, you're charging us for water and sewer. If you guys come out and inspect this thing, the sewer, it didn't go down the drain. It actually went out and ran off into the stormwater. So you guys never treated this water. So could you knock off 2/3 of the bill?" So if you're at a title company and this thing came up and there's an $8,000 water sewer lien, you have to think about these things, because you ever think, well, how do we verify if that's accurate or not? So in this case, it wasn't accurate. They charge us for sewer that they charge you based on your water usage, how much sewer you use. So if you drink at your house but go to the bathroom at somebody else's house, that's not your sewer. But you get the idea. So we actually got 2/3 of this bill knocked off just because we bought it subject to that lien, and we knew we could discount the lien because it wasn't even valid. So another thing in this market, there's a lot of these loan modifications going out. So I see a tremendous opportunity. If you guys, I'm not saying, surely if you have a loan that you can get modified, by all means do that. But there's a lot of loan modifications that are happening that are going to become great deals that you can then take over the payments this year, next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I mean, there's a window of opportunity here where we're going to have these making home affordable loans that people have gotten their loans modified down to 2%. If you walk into somebody's house and they have a 2% loan, by all means, don't pay that off. Say, here's money for your equity. I'll take the house and the loan. So that's one of the things that I see as being a tremendous opportunity right now and moving forward. I talked about the lawsuit. That was really the baseball one. Subject to a lease, again, that's just another form of subject to. An option is something where if I have a house and somebody has an option to buy the house, I just put this in here for an example. If somebody has an option to buy my house, I can still sell the house. but it's subject to that option. So it doesn't preclude me from selling it. It's something that I have to honor, the next person I have to honor. So if I'm going to, any of these things, if you're going to, a title insurance company is going to say, we're not going to insure that. And that's okay if you're willing to take that risk. So understand that most of the times when you're buying a house subject to, you're leaving the mortgage in place or you're leaving the lien in place, and it gives you an opportunity for, I call it seller financing. It's still seller financing. The seller went out, they got the loan's in their name, and you're just taking over the loan. I'm not going to formally assume it. I'm not going to go down to the bank and file their applications and pay their fees to assume it. I will just take the house, take their payment book, send a notification to the bank, and I have all these forms for that. You have a limited power of attorney that you have to use. There's some disclosures that you have to use, and that's something that, if you don't use that stuff, you're going to get in trouble. So we'll move on, or the other way. So the reasons to buy subject to, the loan's already in place, so you don't have to use your credit. So if anybody, with the market the way it is, if anybody's credit's gone down because of, there's a lot of reasons that your credit could have gone down. I mean, I know my credit went down just because the lines of credit and the credit cards they have, they jammed them down. So if I had $60,000 on a $100,000 line, they said, guess what? Your new available balance is $60,000. So what did that do? It just took your credit as having, it took my credit line and showed it as if it was maxed out. Now, I did some of those I actually maxed out on purpose because I knew they were going to shut them down anyway. So you might as well have the money and have 100% maxed out than not have the money and have my credit look like it's maxed out. Another reason is low closing costs. I mean, when you're buying a house, anytime you buy a house, you're paying transfer tax. So you pay transfer tax, you pay some recording fees, but you don't have to pay all the closing costs that get involved with doing a new loan. The points, the appraisals, the origination fees, all that stuff. And the other thing is close quickly. Literally, one of my friends, Dave, has a sign out that says, "I can buy your house in 7 seconds." And the funny thing is, he can. Take out a deed, done. Sign the deed over. I now own your house. It's subject to whatever's on it. So it's subject to that mortgage that's on there. So that's talk about close quickly. I would suggest running a title report and finding what exactly You just got an Exxon Valdez oil spill with that property, And lending limits, I mean, Phil talked about that a little bit. Basically, if you have 10 loans in your name, I don't know if we have a couple mortgage guys in the room, I don't know if that's changed, but if you have 10 loans in your name, loan number 11 is pretty hard to get under regular financing. You're going to commercial financing, so one of the things, it's much easier for somebody else to have the loan in their name, and you can buy 40 of those houses and not run into that wall of 10 house barrier or whatever it is. Phil said 30 some is, but still, if you're looking for residential lending, they have to be conforming. As soon as they see a bunch of loans in your credit report, they don't want to lend you anymore. Question? It's 4 now. So they lowered it to 4. Skip. Thanks. So it used to be 10, now 4. So and even some lenders will say you can only have 1 with them or 2 with them or 3 with them, and they won't lend you anymore. Leverage, I mean, that's the whole point. The point of buying, I like real estate because of leverage. I can control a $200,000 house with the costs of transfer tax and a recording fee. As long as that thing cash flows, and I hang on and I hold on tight, that $200,000 house goes up in value. The whole 200 goes up in value, not just my down payment goes up in value, right? So if I put 10% down on a $200,000 house, my $20,000 doesn't appreciate. The whole house appreciates, and that's the power of real estate over the stock market or other investments. I mean, I don't know if there's other investments out there you can leverage as high as real estate. I certainly don't think so. I know with stock you can do 50%. I'm sure you can buy leveraged gold at some rate. I don't know what you can do there, but that's one of the benefits of real estate. When we're talking about subject to, everybody asks about the due on sale clause. So here it is. I actually printed out the whole clause. The due on sale clause, and I highlighted like one of the most important parts, is people say, well, geez, if I transfer the house to you and the loan stays in my name, then I just triggered this thing that's called due on sale. And that's really, I hear it all the time, but I've never ever heard of anyone that had a loan called on them that the payments were being made current. a lot of the loans that I take over are already behind in payments, and I'm the guy that's making up the payments. So I go to the bank and saying, hey, I'm now managing this property. It's 3 payments behind. Here's 3 payments. Please send all future correspondence to me. I'll be making them, and I obviously have the seller sign that whole thing. And taking it from a situation where the lender is, you're taking a non-performing loan and making it performing again, you know, you think the lender is really going to call a loan due? I mean, it could happen. It says right in here that they have the right to. And one of the key things, it says lender may at its option. So its option means they reserve the right to do that. It doesn't mean that they will, and I haven't heard of any situation. But let's say that they do. There is no due on sale jail. And what I mean by that is, here are the consequences. If borrower fails to pay the loan when it's due on sale, prior to the expiration of a period that they give you, 30 days, whatever it may be, the lender may invoke any remedies permitted by the security instrument without further notice or demand on the borrower. So what does that mean? That means that they have the right to foreclose. That means, now, it doesn't, there's nothing, in Pennsylvania, it's like 9 months. So at that point, if ever it happens, don't get hung up on it. If it ever happens, you have a big period of time that you can go out and get a private lender, get private financing, sell the property, do a short sale. There's all sorts of things that you could do that if you're worried about the due on sale clause, I'll tell you that it's really a classroom question when it comes up. So that's the whole thing. And even HUD themselves has this form called 1. The form is number 1, HUD 1. Section 203, right on their form, says existing loans taken subject to. And then on the other side, you have I really have a problem with this form because it says seller and borrower. And if you're buying a house cash, are you a borrower? You know, it's like, it's the government. Seller, buyer, maybe? But anyway, existing loans taken subject to. There it is on the seller's side. So it would have payoff. And look at that. It even puts that ahead of payoffs of mortgages. So maybe HUD likes subject to better than they like payoffs. I don't know. But it's right on their form. You can check it out, print it out when you get home. So why would somebody sell their house subject to? The alternative to subject to, in most cases, is somebody's going to lose the house to foreclosure or they're going to do a short sale, neither of which help their credit. If I take over somebody's loan and I'm making their payments each and every month, guess whose credit it doesn't help? Mine. It actually helps their credit. And to this day, I actually get, I kind of feel a little guilty about this because I'm actually improving somebody else's credit that may not deserve to have it improved. I'm getting credit card offers for people that I bought their houses from that come into my office, and I'm like, man, maybe this guy doesn't deserve to have these offers. It's just because I'm making the payments that he's getting these offers. God forbid he goes and gets a Volkswagen lease and then defaults on it because your credit looks great. You've been paying your mortgage every month. No, it was that guy. So it has a good impact on their credit to pay somebody else's mortgage. If it's not being paid, if you're the one that's paying it, it affects their mortgage in a positive way. It affects their mortgage in a negative way if you don't pay it. So if you tell somebody you're going to pay their mortgage, you pay it. The other thing that I often get is how they'll say, well, how do I know the payments are being made? And like I said, a lot of these are in default. So I said, a lot of my response is you're in no worse situation than you were before. So before you weren't making the payments and I come in and I make them up, if I were to default, and there's no reason I would need to do that, I'm here to make money and I don't make money on this thing unless I can hang on to it long enough that it goes up in value and I can sell it. So if you need some security, maybe what I can do is send a check to you, Mr. Seller, but I'll make it out to your bank. So I'll make the check out to your bank, I'll send it to you, you can forward it along to them. I've never had to do that. I've been asked to do it, and then typically if somebody asks you, you say, that's fine, we'll send it to an attorney for escrow. I said, okay. And then they say, that's all right, just go ahead and send it in. Sometimes they'll want to log in with a password to make sure, they want to call the 800 number, and I've had a couple people say, I want to call the 800 number to find out if the payments are being made. And then once they know you're making them, you pretty much, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, they understand the deal. There's a lot of disclaimers, a lot of disclosures that you need to fill out because they're violating a clause in their contract, just like moving a pet into a lease that doesn't allow pets, right? So the same thing. They just violated one of the clauses in the contract, and that has consequences, which we looked at. But like I said, I've never had that due on sale.
How do you transfer the property
with a deed? Yeah, we transfer the property with the deed, and the title policy has to exclude the mortgage or whatever you're taking subject to. If it's a lien, if it's a mortgage, if it's that water sewer thing, they basically, the title insurance would say, we'll insure this property from all liens and encumbrances except for that certain mortgage that was recorded in Bucks County Recorder Deeds, book number 12345, page number 768.
So you're just leaving it open, subject to payment?
We're leaving it open. The title, we're getting title insurance on everything except for that mortgage, if it's a mortgage. So they're actually putting that on the title company uses Schedule B as all their exclusion. So it just stays on Schedule B. So and we know that we're buying it with that, it's essentially we're buying with dirty title, but there's a lot of benefit to doing it that because nobody else will. So we actually had this, I think Jamie just came to the office the other day, was asking me about this. Phil and I buy our stuff in trust. There's plenty of great reasons for it. There's a few reasons not to do it, like if you're going to get institutional financing, but you know my nickname, so I'm not looking for institutional financing. We borrow money from humans, and or their IRAs, which are also not necessarily natural persons, but we buy properties in trust, and we hold them in trust for several reasons. Number one, if I hold properties in an LLC, in order to do that, I have to go pay Pennsylvania $100. I got to advertise it in 2 papers of general circulation. I have to have all these requirements. If I buy a property in trust, I've already had my trusts approved, looked at by an attorney, and now that the first one is done, the rest of them are pretty easy. So by buying in trust, I pretty much can go to my computer, generate a trust, hit print it on the printer, and now I have an entity. I don't need to go down and ask permission from Pennsylvania to do it. So it doesn't give you a ton of liability protection, but what it does give is it segregates every property. So if I'm buying the property on 123 Main Street, I could have the 123 Main Street Trust. And the nice thing about that is if you go to Philadelphia and you get a lien against you, Joe, you have properties in your name? Personally? No? Okay. So who here owns property in Philadelphia? Okay. Who owns title in their personal name? More than one property? Okay, in the IRA. It does whatever entity it is. It could be an LLC, it could be your personal name, it could be anything. If you get a lien against that property for, let's say, your tenant put out trash and they got a trash fine and it built up to a lien, it affects every single property. So you can't sell any of your properties in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, that doesn't just go for Philadelphia, but Philadelphia is notorious for fines. So you can't sell any of those properties without dealing with that lien. So if you get a lien on your house on Tuesday, you're going to go sell a house across the other side of the city on Wednesday, guess what? Lien gets in your way. By keeping it in trust, if the tenant gets a trash fine and it liens my property in the one trust, it doesn't touch the other trust that's right next door, 2 doors down, the other side of the city, that kind of thing. So that's just one benefit. The other is just privacy, anonymity. If you pull up, if you go to the guys that are buying at the sheriff's sales, ask them for their business card and go pull up their name on public records, you'll see, I don't care if it's LLC or if it's their personal name, pull up that LLC name, pull up their personal name on public records, you'll see their whole transaction history, every deal they've done. Every deal they've done. And you're like, wow, this guy made $720 grand last year. So just think about that. I mean, if you want privacy, this is just one of the ways to do it. Buying in trust, part of this also is still continuing with the subject to, there's some important things, documents. The trust is a very important document to use, especially when you're buying subject to. We typically name, the hardest thing about buying a property subject to is the homeowner's insurance. And there's a couple ways that's being done that are completely wrong. The right way is to hold the insurance in the name of the trust and to cancel the old homeowner's policy. This is the biggest question I get. You got to cancel the old homeowner's policy, but we typically name the trust after the homeowner. So if it's the Barnes family, I'm going to name it the Barnes Family Trust. Number one, the insurance it's very important you have insurance on the property. If you have dual insurance on the property, your claim could get denied because you have dual coverage, and they say, sorry, you already have other insurance. We're going to deny the claim. There's some additional insureds that you have to add, the seller, and there's a whole way that I do it that I can share with another time, but I want to move on here. We always have them fill out a statement of facts form when I'm buying subject to. When I'm buying subject to, there's a statement of facts that basically says, I'm selling my house, the mortgage is staying in my name, you're not agreeing to pay it off, you're not going to formally assume it. I'm violating a clause in my mortgage that says that the loan that could trigger the acceleration of my mortgage. So all these things are put into a very plain language statement of facts that I give every seller if I'm buying that way. I talked about the power of attorney and got ahead of myself on the insurance too. So this is you guys probably at the last like 2 or 3 meetings you've been hearing Phil talk about Phil's bag, and Phil's bag finally made an appearance, and I let him go back to him on this, but he actually renamed it anyway. So.
So, for those of you who've heard of Phil's bag before, over the years, you go on all these appointments to buy property, and what I tried to do is develop a bag that had every single thing that you would need in it in order to close the deal. So if the guy calls my truck and says, spin a U-turn, all I have to do is grab Phil's bag. And between the knowledge that's between my ears and the contracts that are in Phil's bag, I can perform just about any one of these 12 deals that are listed up here. So I want to talk a little bit about these 12 ways. And what we've talked about so far are really the top 3. We got a seller finance deal. We got a subject to deal, and then we've got private money. Okay, so these are the 3 main ways, the pillars of buying properties today, in my opinion. You need to understand these. If you don't, this is something you have to learn. You really have to learn, and you have to start getting out there and making these offers. Okay, so just to recap real quick, seller financing is when the owner is becoming the mortgage company, and I'm buying the house and they're providing the mortgage. Subject to, that Jeremy just talked about, is when there's an existing mortgage in place and I'm going to buy the house subject to the terms of their mortgage. I'm going to buy the house and I become the owner of the house, but the mortgage remains in the seller's name even after this. So now they have a mortgage in their name, but I own the house. Okay, and then I make payments on their mortgage. I leave the financing in place. And then the middle one, which is private money, okay, private money is when I'm using my cash or somebody else's cash to buy this house. So if you understand those 3 concepts, what happens